the mic turned on? Yes, it is. Press my iPhone stopwatch because I can't see the one down there. Thank you all for joining our session today. It's one we've heard very interesting conversations taking us right through the journey of really, in essence, the value of place in the virtual world. I think that sums it up. That sums up what we're trying to do in all our daily lives. We're all affected by it because we all work, so it's a topic that's, at everybody's heart. But what we would like to focus on in our very brief session today is the factor of productivity. It's been mentioned loads of times this morning already, and if I could just reinvigorate the group here by asking you all to at least show a sign of hand if you think that productivity, and that is employee productivity, not space productivity, is one of the most important issues that we need to focus on going forward. So if I can please ask you to raise your hand to show me. Okay, so that sort of says a fair group, a fair proportion of this group, which is similar to the events we ran already in Sao Paulo, in New York, and in Singapore with Worktech as a global knowledge partner, to explore how important is productivity going forward, and how can we measure it? Because that's the part that is always a bit of a struggle. There is a big focus on it. We've just done our global corporate real estate survey, and workplace productivity and people productivity rank extremely high on people's agendas. Yet we still are trying to come to terms with how to actually measure it. There's a big debate always going on. Nobody's invented it. There is no yardstick. There is no thermometer. There is nothing we can apply to measuring people productivity in the workplace, because that is what we should all be aiming for, to create an environment that increases that. So in order to get a little bit into the detail here, to explain our thinking around this, and it's not a solution, it is just a base for debate, some initial thinking we would like to create. We haven't invented the thermometer either. We're openly admitting that. But we are exploring avenues with clients to figure out how to get a handle on productivity. So if I may ask you, this is slightly experimental for me, Generation A, I am, so technology is overpowering me somewhat, but if I could get you to get your mobile devices, anything you have, iPad, BlackBerry, iPhone, and copy down this link. It's a bit time intense. I know it comes out of my time, but it's an exercise we have done in all our other sessions around the globe, and we very much hope to share with you all the outcome when we close out this particular initiative at the Worktech event in London later this year. So if you've got that copied in and go on that link, I would like you to look at. It's poll everywhere, shortfall.com/JLL EMEA. And that will bring you still, dear me, I should have handed it out. There's something happening. Have you all got that down? Or ask your neighbor to fill in the blanks? Yep, that's it. So you should see a slide that gives you 6 options. What do you spend the most time doing at work? That is the poll you should see now. So you have the choice. You think about your day in a life, emails, phone calls, formal meetings, creative collaboration, concentrated work, and face-to-face interaction. So we can see we have 15 results in. We'll give a couple of more minutes for all of you to see that result. I don't know how many people we have in total in the room, so how many results we should focus on. There's a good example also in terms of how modern technology interacts or impacts on the way we do our daily work. Great tools coming out all the time, apps coming out all the time. I know a year ago, I was at a conference, or 2 years ago, we all got handed these voting devices, and I thought that was the bee's knees. Nowadays, it's really moving into an everyday, I can use it, I can set this up, I can program the questions. So we see that the lead position here is really emails, very little on phone calls and formal meetings, and a lot on creative collaboration. And this poll will stay open, so we can go back to that, but it gives us a first indication of what we spend most of our day doing. The second question I would like you to now answer is, what activity creates the most value for your organization? You go directly in your browser. You copy it directly in your browser. No?
How do you go to the next question then?
It should be up now. Refresh. Oh dear. No, we're not very productive. So I will take that learning with me. The second poll, actually the one that I think is most interesting, is when we talk to organizations about how to measure productivity, I think the key question is to actually understand what creates value for an organization. So it's digging much deeper into the processes that are actually making money for the organization. So we've done this with a number of pilot projects in Asia Pacific and here in Europe. And how Workplace supports productivity, a lot of time is spent on emails, a lot of time is voted for phone calls and also formal meetings, but the value that is created actually lies in the side to the right, which is the creative collaboration, the concentrated work as well, and the face-to-face. So whereas most workspaces actually very sort of kind of well support the activities on the left in workstations, desks, in probably some phone booths as well, it's really looking at the section on the right and how can the workplace support these areas better going forward. And we took that a bit deeper into some of our pilot projects, but actually working with individual teams in organization. One example from the financial industry, to actually sit down with all the different business lines to figure out how would they measure value, what is value for them, what is productivity for them. And we've seen that it is critically important to balance concentrated work with collaboration. It is not sort of overstimulating and putting too much emphasis on meetings. It's all important on collaboration, but concentrated work is just as important. And the way we've linked that to them is the way their product development cycle goes and how space could influence that product development cycle. So we look at, first of all, the thinking part, sort of creating an idea. That requires both solo contemplating work, but also brainstorming together. So it's actually looking at creating a work environment from a particular process that's critical to the business itself, whether that's product development, innovation, time to market, all these things, and take that as a roadmap to developing an office environment rather than just sort of thinking about furniture and lighting and other elements of the space. So the next one is understanding the requirements. That's again, activities that are solo in that aspect, but other activities that need to be done together as part of the same process. So how can a work environment create the opportunity to have both concentrated and collaborative space? The next one is propose feasibility. And I think one of those, this is also not a new concept. If you think about it, I think Walt Disney was one that in the 50s created that moving from room to room, depending on where in the process of creating a new movie or a new animation they were, from a sort of very early everything is allowed room to a very formal, review and reflect. So it's not a new idea. So we have the design, and that's, for different industries means different things. But again, it's one where we need to depend on individual concentrated elements of work, but also on work that we do together. Then comes the testing phase. Again, it's the same, providing the right balance between, concentration and collaboration, and not sacrificing the one for the benefit of the other. And then finally, the implementation, again, is that same. So we've come to this, this map with that business line in a number of our clients to really work out where is actually value created, and then identify with the organization key performance indicators on how we believe productivity should be measured in those circumstances. But as we've heard several times before today, it's all about cost. And for us, the interesting question is, how can we actually move the workplace debate from a cost, square meter per person fit out cost, into the value creating realm, which is what we're trying to explore and what we're increasingly seeing to be relevant in client engagements. So we've looked at key performance indicators. I mentioned it earlier, and these are just 3 of the ones that we identified with the private wealth group that they highlight. It really makes all the difference to their business. That's the frequency of connections, you can measure that. The speed of decision making, you can measure that. And wasted time through disruptions, if the balance between concentrated and collaborative isn't right, how much time is wasted to that. And every organization actually is quite able to put the framework around that and to put the dollars next to it, actually, in real terms. So, in summary, what we're exploring and what we're increasingly building is those 4 fundamental questions with organizations. What constitutes productivity for your business? That's different, not just from business to business, but that's different within businesses as well, from department to department. What does an desired experience look like? Again, falls into that category of making, why make that journey for clients and for employees? What observable behaviors are required to drive these outcomes? And how can a workplace enable that? And with that, I hand over to Pim, who will give us a little bit of perspective on the Dutch market and experience with that here in the Dutch market.
Okay, thank you, Claudia. I will talk now, and I will talk for 5 minutes about these questions that were suggested by Claudia, and for each one I will give an example from our Dutch client base. A great client of JLL is bol.com, and for those who don't know bol.com, it's an online shopping site, and bol is Dutch for round, so that explains the little man running along this washing machine. But what is productivity for bol.com? Well, first of all, this is about scale. And bol.com in the Netherlands is growing to a large scale fast. So you can imagine the CRE requirements deriving from that. A second one is a fast growth of new functionality. And this means testing. Productivity in testing means automated testing, process innovation, and collaboration with the best partners. And a third example of what constitutes productivity for bol.com is the need for speed. So in this world, in bol.com's world, it's all about fulfillment. And fulfillment does not only mean an XL logistics center, it also means that your working environment, your office environment, needs to enable fast and continuous innovation and improvement. Yeah, boy, do I have some nerve coming up with this example in this house. But trust me, ABN AMRO is a valued client as well. What ING does is creating better workplaces, as they say. And they do so in the Netherlands, and they also do so worldwide. And from a customer perspective, here's why. First of all, clients of the top employees switch banks less often. Second is diversity. So the bank with the employees that mirror society perform better. And the third is the need for a change in culture, and that culture within ING needs to reflect, let's say, direct client feedback. Another example is the high-tech industry. And they have an important lifeline, and it was mentioned before, and it's called open innovation. But what does this mean, open innovation? Well, Philips was there early to recognize how important open innovation is. So they became a true promoter of this. And here at the High-Tech Campus Eindhoven, you can actually see by the pictures the employee behaviors that are required for successful open innovation. So wouldn't you just love to work at High-Tech Campus Eindhoven? Yeah, this 3D model I really like a lot. And that's just because, let's say, the right-hand side seems to demonstrate so much better that productivity requirements have been captured relative to the left-hand side, which clearly doesn't. So the secret of productivity in the workplace is definitely not better floor plans. I mean, Claudia and I have put the subject, I think, in much wider perspective. So it's all about enabling, helping to deliver the true company priorities.
Thank you for that. I believe we have 5 minutes for some questions. Yes, of course, and of course. Productivity. Does it?
Final poll.
All right, so has someone found the Holy Grail to productivity? Oh dear.
This is the final poll. I think it's, in a sense, it's different from what we've seen in the one last week in Asia, where there was still a lot of emphasis also on phone calls and formal meetings, so it showed exactly. And the question we're trying to explore with clients, but with other service suppliers, with influencers around this topic, is really if we don't focus in on measuring what creates value, do we get it wrong when we deliver? So do we get stuck in the way we've always done it? Do we get stuck in the how much does it cost? You know, how many people can we squeeze in? If we don't really understand, or if we see that we're, you know, where the value is created and what we're actually measuring. So that's just, you know, a quick snapshot, and it'll be interesting to see that. We're missing the second phase of that now, unfortunately, but to see how that compares across the regions.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I think we all appreciate the irony of being at Worktech and having to deal with mobile technology. Yeah. But still, it's very interesting. So I guess what I gathered from your story is that would you say that there is no definite productivity measure, and that it depends on the individual business and your business goals and KPIs?
I think it's very much another one of those be careful of one size fits all. So everybody's looking for that one easy measure that's, you know, Productivity is as much about perception of the individual as it is about hard facts that you can measure absenteeism, you can measure sick days, there's a number of hard data that you can contribute, but is that actually what makes your business unit valuable? That needs to be explored on a case, and the more in detail you go, the more you can link workplace transformation to value for the business, which is where we need to go, and not to yet another move project or consolidation project. Yeah.
Any more questions? Okay. What's been the most interesting productivity measure that you've come across?
Most interesting. I think that, some of the ones that we've highlighted there, number of connections across the organization, speed of decision making. There is nothing really, that sort of jumps out and is totally unusual. They're all pretty much around,
Ease of connecting to the internet, maybe.
Well, I think in the technology, it's a good point, the ability to work like we now say is the holy grail of working is a big stumbling block. So technology is still one of the big challenges, apart from workers' councils in certain parts of Europe, but that's still a big stumbling block, the IT trying to prevent it rather than embrace it, is still obvious in certain organizations.
Yeah, there was a poll that was held in the Netherlands. It came out last week, and it asked employees what were the top 10 annoyances in the workplace, and lack of internet connection was number one.
Yeah, so, it is. It was in that project that we did as well. That's wasted time. It's technology based, and the second one is really people tapping you on the shoulder, interrupting your train of thought all the time. So if the environment is overly open without the right mix of concentrated versus collaborative space, then that is probably the first biggest time killer in terms of productivity.
All right.
Disruption.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.